what if you closed on your dream home and a month after you moved in, you found out your house was in foreclosure? I mean, you've made your payment on time, so surely this is impossible, right? Well, no, it's not. And let me tell you how this whole home purchase scam happens and what you can do to prevent it. So let's just say you're looking on Zillow and you find a house you want to see. Like maybe this is like a totally spontaneous thing, like you weren't really planning on moving, you haven't found a realtor or anything, but the house is everything you've been looking for. So you reach out to the number on the listing, and the guy's like, sure, absolutely. What time do you want to see it? And by the way, there's owner financing on this one. All of this sounds a little too convenient and a little too good to be true, right? Well, it is. So here's a tip you need to know. Not every person you encounter on Zillow is a realtor. Zillow allows for sale by owner listings. So you may assume this whole time that you're working with a credible realtor, and this isn't a realtor at all. But it's even worse than that. Like maybe you assumed you were working with the seller, but this isn't the seller either. This is so common that Zillow even has a whole page called Beware of Scams and Other Internet Fraud. In the article, they explain scams are a reality of shopping online and offline. Zillow strives to provide a safe online community, but you should always be wary of giving personal information, financial information, or payments of any kind to people you don't know personally. But to the extent Zillow labels it internet fraud, there are scammers who will literally meet you at the actual house and show it to you as if it's theirs. So how do they do that? Well, many companies like Opendoor don't require you to be a realtor to view their homes. Like all you have to do is download the app, schedule a showing, and there you go. As long as the scammer can figure out a way to get inside the home, you can be taken. Now, Zillow's not the only place this can happen. Let's talk about sites like Facebook Marketplace. Amanda Hoover wrote an article titled "Scammers Are Ruining Facebook Marketplace." In it, the article describes how with an existing Facebook profile, users could upload photos, write descriptions, and seamlessly post a listing with just a few clicks. And don't even get me started on Craigslist. Any listings you see on these places could be scammers posing as sellers, and you need to know what to look out for. Now, if you still don't believe me that this is happening all the time, how about a celebrity example? All right, here's one that's gonna blow your mind. Years ago, motivational speaker Les Brown purchased a home for him and his mom. It was a house they'd both dreamed of, and he had the money to buy it, so he did. Well, a short time later, he was served with a foreclosure notice from a party that held a lien on the property. Of course, he was shocked, like how could he possibly be foreclosed on a property he just bought? Well, as it turns out, Mr. Brown didn't use a title company, and both he and his mother were forced to move out. He lost all of his money. Now here's another example from a scammer on Craigslist. A Kansas City family bought a house on Craigslist and were asked to wire the money to pay for it. The person selling the house told them the front door was unlocked and they could just go in, and then sent a text message telling them to change the locks ASAP. I guess that's pretty weird, right? Well, 2 days later, the police showed up at the door with the real owner asking them to leave immediately. Okay, so now that you can see this is a real thing, what's your solution here? Well, you might be assuming I'm gonna say something like always use a realtor, but I'm not, okay? Because there's something else that's even more important here. What you wanna do is always, okay, and I mean always, buy your house through a title company. Now, will you or the seller have to pay for it? Yes, all right, but will it absolutely be worth it? Yes. Now, going right along with that, never let money change hands directly with the seller. The title company is gonna verify who owns the house, and they'll require the seller to provide ID. Also, the title company's job is to protect you against anyone claiming they have a lien against your home, such as a mortgage company foreclosing on you. Now, make no mistake, guys, a bank absolutely can foreclose on the home you just bought, even if you've made all of your payments. So to the extent we could say your first big tactic is you don't have clean title, the second tactic would be you don't have possession. All right, so how can this actually happen? Well, what about if the seller just never moves out? I mean, there could be all kinds of ways that this manifests itself. Could be a traditional family who just doesn't leave, right? Or what about a situation where there's a divorce? and one of the spouses is hostile. Or an extended family member, where the primary family moved out, but the extended family member isn't in a hurry. Another common way this can happen is when the home has a tenant who doesn't move out. If you're trying to purchase a home that is tenant occupied, you always need to do your due diligence and ask for the lease. So who's to say the seller's being honest about the termination of the lease? I mean, maybe the tenants think they still have another year to live there, even though you think you just bought the home and can move in. Another way this can happen is, say the seller lives out of state and a scammer sold it to someone else right under your nose. Or maybe a squatter moved in. Like, Texas real estate laws make the actual possession of a home a very big deal. Now, one calculated risk that happens decently often here in Dallas is the leaseback, okay? Now, this is when the seller asks for a little extra time after closing to move out. This can be an effective tool at getting your offer accepted, but you do have to know it's a calculated risk. So how can you keep that risk to a minimum? Well, keep the leaseback as short as possible and require a deposit. Now, I would say never agree to lease-backed possession with anyone that's not the seller. For example, you're told the tenant just needs a little more time. I absolutely would not do that. In that event, the seller gets his money, the tenant becomes your problem. All right, for any of you skeptics out there who are thinking this all sounds a little far-fetched, all right, I hear ya. But how about this article from USA Today entitled "Fairly Big Problem: Squatters Invade Homes and Refuse to Leave. How is this legal?" Or there's another story that shares how a court rules a pair can stay in $3.9 million West Side Vancouver house for now, despite selling it a year ago. Or how about this one titled, "I Hate This Home Now. California couple finally changes the locks on their dream house after previous owner refused to leave for over a year." So don't get caught having to waste an entire year to move into your home after buying it. All right, so what's your solution here? Well, if you were promised possession at closing, do not sign and do not pay until you have it. Moving on, another sales tactic you need to be aware of is the high pressure sale. Now, this can come from many places, so it's even more important to recognize the signs. All right, so think about those key signs here, okay? High pressure, all right? Is your heart pounding faster? Do you have a sudden sense of urgency? All right, so if that happens, you need to take a deep breath, step back, and figure out where the pressure is coming from and why. There are a lot of different ways you can be pressured into a sale. For example, your realtor could absolutely push you into an unwise sale. All right, here's some phrases you want to watch out for. It's always a good time to buy, or prices will only go up from here. In my opinion, and I would venture to say the state of Texas's opinion, this is inexcusable from a realtor. They have a fiduciary duty to put your interests first. I mean, sure, sometimes, okay, the market conditions may genuinely make it a good time to buy, and a good realtor should tell you that. But the agent should be able to explain it beyond just, well, prices will only go up from here. Have them explain the market to you and provide the data. Even then, it's their job to inform you and then let you make your decision, not pressure you into one. A new construction sales consultant can definitely be another person to pressure you into an unwise home purchase. In fact, I'd say they are particularly excellent at building a sense of urgency. I mean, think about it this way. With pre-owned homes, you're insulated between two realtors. The buyer's agent has a fiduciary duty to you, the buyer, and then the listing agent has a fiduciary duty to the seller. I mean, both are required to abide by a standard of ethics, right? And they're held accountable. If they don't want to lose their license, they better keep it on the straight and narrow. This is not the case with a sales consultant. They are not licensed realtors and they don't owe you anything. Quite the contrary. They represent the builder who obviously wants to make this sale. So plan on them bringing the pressure. All right, so how can you shield yourself from this? Well, once you've begun seriously considering a specific home, there shouldn't be any reason for this sales consultant to communicate with you directly. All right, communication can be in either like a group text with your realtor, or they can just speak to your realtor directly. Sometimes a sales consultant will go behind the agent's back directly to the buyer and put on an enormous amount of pressure. We had this happen once where the sales consultant was badgering our buyer nonstop, okay, and it was serious high pressure stuff. I mean, they can make it to where you just can't think clearly. The big problem here, and something to keep in mind, is that if they're going around us, we won't know it's happening. So here's what you have to remember. We won't know this is going on unless you tell us. And there is a reason you hired us. So let us absorb that pressure and insulate you from it. As people who do this type of thing every day, all right, we're a lot more desensitized to it and a lot more familiar with the kinds of games that sales consultants can play. Okay, so what's your solution here? Well, trusted representation. I mean, this could be a realtor, could even be like a trusted family member who's experienced with home buying. The idea is to have a person who won't be susceptible to pressure, who can shield you from it. Now, another real estate tactic you will see all the time, but should never fall for, is overpricing, right? Or just pricing scams in general. This is something you're gonna run into with both pre-owned and new construction homes, but it's a lot more common with new construction. See, you might feel like you've struck gold when you come across a home with a major price reduction, right? The price has fallen and you're already picturing yourself holding the keys. But have you ever wondered why the price was lowered? All right, a price cut isn't always as straightforward as it seems, and you need to know how to explore why that is. So here's the key point to hold on to. Make sure you understand how builders and sellers use this strategy. They might list a home at an inflated price, like we're talking possibly several $100,000 more than its actual value. Then they dramatically cut the price, making it seem like you are scoring an incredible bargain. But the thing is that even after that big reduction, the home could still be overpriced. In order to actually know whether or not you're getting a good deal on a home, or even just paying what it's worth, you need a market analysis. And you need someone with MLS access to do that for you, okay? It could be a realtor, it could be a real estate attorney, but the point is, insist on the data before you buy a home. I mean, even if you happen to work in sales yourself, and you have full trust in your negotiation skills, if you don't know the real market data on a home, you don't know what price to fight for. Matt Woods, co-founder and CEO of Sold.com, completely agrees with this. He says, don't mistake a price-reduced home for being an automatic bargain. If a house is listed as price-reduced, have your broker or agent do some investigating into why. I want to give you an example of this on some listings from Weston, Texas, which is located just north and east of Salina. If you compare the original list prices to the current list prices, you're going to see massive price reductions, okay? We're talking $70,000, over $80,000, even close to $85,000 in price reductions. But then if you check out the market analysis, the past 3 sales suggest a value of around $207 a square foot. So let's just say the first house on the list really caught your eye. I mean, you couldn't believe it's been reduced by $70,000. But then again, you know, the housing crashers are saying the market's crashing, so opportunity knocks, right? Well, if you would have purchased that home for the drastically reduced price of $429,000, you would be overpaying by $48,000. All right, you would be upside down. So what's your solution here? Well, Matt Woods wraps up his article perfectly, saying they might catch your eye and look like a good deal, but you'll never truly know until you do a comprehensive market analysis. And for that, you really should consult a realtor who knows what they're doing. In other words, you need access to the market data. You have to be able to target the home's correct value. Texas is a non-disclosure state, so this will need to come from someone with MLS access. Could be a realtor, could be an attorney, but either way, you always want to be sure you have a detailed market analysis. Another buying tactic you need to be watching out for is when you're quoted the wrong house payment. You're typically going to see this happen when the home is new construction and it's still showing as unimproved land on the tax roll. Value might be showing at like $50,000, you know, for the value of the land, when it's gonna pop up to like $800,000 within a year. Now, the problem here is when your monthly payment is quoted based on an artificially low value for property taxes. I mean, this is gonna be huge, and it could definitely be devastating. In fact, I wanna show you what this looks like on actual real settlement statements so you know what to be on the lookout for. Now, keep in mind that a typical $350,000 home with the homestead exemption will cost you around $600 a month in taxes. In our first example, you'll notice that the initial escrow payment at closing has $142 per month allocated for property taxes. Now, even if the buyer purchased a $350,000 home and anticipates paying $600 per month in property taxes, this means their monthly payment will increase by more than $450. Now, in the second example, if you check out the impound section, you'll see that they qualified this buyer with $180 a month going towards property taxes. But within a year, their monthly payment is going to jump by over $400. Now, let me show you another example where the escrow account is set up correctly. Here, the property tax escrow is set at $739 a month, which is really more in keeping with what you should expect. All right, this is what a settlement statement should look like. Do you see the danger here? Using an artificially low property tax escrow makes a buyer think they can afford way more house than they can. Now, that's great for the seller. I mean, hey, you can afford more house. But for the buyer, right, this is disastrous. Okay, so what is your solution here? When you're getting pre-approved for a loan, insist the lender provide you with a loan estimate and dissect that thing, paying close attention to the property tax section. Remember, for a $300,000 house, the payment should probably be right around like $600 a month. So if the lender sends you a loan estimate and it has $200 set aside for the property taxes, set the lender straight on that. Insist they be accurate with what the taxes will become, not what they are at land value. Now, we've touched a little on the reality of property taxes in Texas, but there's a lot more you need to know if you're planning on buying here. Now, a great place to start is this video, which you may want to watch next. In the meantime, Wendy out.